Previously on Read with Ronald.
I have all his covers like this. I have all of them like this. Look, this is my favorite type of covers from him. I literally have all of them. They're right there with Ronald's books. Have
I
all
really
of
like this
Ronald's books.
cover.
I have this. All the covers that are like this. I have all
Mhm.
of them. Oh, I sent you. I sent him one of my extra copies because I ordered like
Oh,
three
cute.
of them. Do you have it?
Uh-huh. She sent me these.
Because I ordered those and they weren't the ones I wanted. So I sent it to him. I said, go ahead, read these. I don't know if he even read them yet, but I sent them
I
to him
haven't.
because
I ain't read them. On this edition of Read with Ronald, I read Eric Jerome Dickey's Cheaters. So before we get into this, I just want to let you know that this book has a scene of an attempted assault on a woman, and it has a scene of a man putting his hands on a woman. And I also want to let you know that I'm going to be talking about this book in depth, in detail. I'm going to go over the whole storyline. And if that's not something that you want, thank you for watching up to this point. But feel free to go ahead and click off. And who knows? I mean, shoot. Maybe when you read the book and you decide to come back and watch and decide if you agree with me or disagree, feel free.
First published in 1999, Eric Jerome Dickey's Cheaters follows Stefan, Shantae, and Darnell as they explore romance and the consequences of being unfaithful in Los Angeles. In his author's note, Eric Jerome described this book as being a 180-degree turn from his previous book, Friends and Lovers, stating he did not want to do the same book again and that Cheaters' characters are the peeps that the Friends and Lovers cast would not date. Cheaters was named Blackboard Book of the Year in 2000.
So how I got this book was Tati gave it to me. I want to say late 2021, early 2022. Like she said, I'm the critic. So I was ranting to her about the book I had just read, and she was telling me about the book she was reading. And talking about books is what we do. So we was just talking about books, and we got on the topic of Eric Jerome Dickey. And so she sent me a photo of this cover of Friends and Lovers. And she told me how much she loved those covers. And I was like, ooh, I like that cover too. It looks like old school black art. And so basically she was like, oh yeah, I have like 2, 3 different copies of his other books, Cheaters and Liars Game, because I collect the covers. And I was like, oh well, I mean, if you're not trying to hang on to them copies, I mean, you can send them my way. I mean, I'll take them off your hands. And so she was like, yeah, I'll send you the copies. And so that's how I ended up with this book. I've had these books for like a year, and I didn't, for some reason. I don't know. I just avoided reading them. After reading Friends and Lovers, I needed more. So that's why I read this book. I needed more for them. Today is February 1st. It's about 3:30 in the morning. I've just started Eric Jerome Dickey's Cheaters. It's split into 3 parts, like how Friends and Lovers was. So I just finished part 1. I plan on reading part 2 later on today. My thoughts on it so far, I'm enjoying it. The book is narrated from 3 characters' perspectives: Stefan, Shantae, and Darnell. Stefan has a roster that consists of Brittany, Samantha, and Toyomi. Probably be a 4th edition named Shar later on in the book, probably. But his roster also has their own rosters, and he doesn't like that. Stefan has a roster because that's what his father taught him, was what a man should be like, that a man should have a roster. And he taught them the 4 F's, which is to find a woman, to fool a woman, to freak a woman, and then to forget a woman. So that's what his father taught him. So basically he's trying to find the one to settle down with. Shantae is a single woman who keeps attracting men who like aren't really that great as partners. So first it was Craig, who literally abandoned her, like literally, like he was here one day making plans with her. The next day he was just gone without any word, just straight disappearance. Then it was Michael, who was a married man, and she didn't know he was married until his wife showed up on her doorstep at 3 in the morning with his kids looking for him. And then there was Tahid, who also has a roster. And then Darnell is married to Dawn. And Dawn, he loves Dawn, but Dawn is very overbearing. She wants to start a family, but Darnell wants to focus on his career and follow his dream of being an author. He's a lawyer. She's a real estate agent. He wants to add author to his list of titles, but Dawn does not support that. She's like, you make good money as a lawyer. Why are you trying to leave that good money and put our family in financial burden?
just to pursue a dream that might not work out, so she doesn't support him. There's a fourth character in the book who has importance, but he doesn't have perspective, is Jake. He's engaged to Charlotte, but he has a side chick, Pamela. And he's also having these weird nightmares where he keeps seeing people that look familiar, but he can't really place why he's seeing them in these nightmares, and it's the same recurring nightmare. They're Shantae's best friends, Tammy and Karen. Tammy is the more sensible one. She's the more voice of reason, and Karen is, I'm just gonna say, Karen is bitter because she's had 3 failed relationships and she wants to be married. And Karen is more slick at the mouth, and she's always getting into it with Shantae and always talking down to Shantae. So those are the people narrating the book. Those are the characters in the book. I'm enjoying the book so far. It's really interesting reading. Basically, majority of the characters are cheating, like the book of the title, Cheaters. We'll see how this goes. Hopefully, it don't turn out like Friends and Lovers where somebody dies again. That's another thing. We find out Tammy is an actress, and she landed a role on the show that Leonard was supposed to be on for Friends and Lovers, but her bag got messed up because Leonard died. And I was like, Eric, you didn't have to bring up Leonard. You didn't have to reopen that wound. You could have left that wound closed. You didn't have to do that to us again. Today is February 2nd. I'm still reading Cheaters by Jerome Dickey. I'm reaching about halfway through it. I'm enjoying it. Stefan and Toyomi got into it. She found out he had a roster and she was not happy. Darnell is kind of becoming interested in Tammy, and his marriage with Dawn is not looking too good. Shantae and Stefan met, and they're kind of growing closer together, and I'm like, oh no. I'm nervous because it's like Shantae's been cheated on so many times, and I'm like, I don't want her to be with Stefan because Stefan is a proud cheater, and I don't want them to be together if he's just going to do her wrong. But at the same time, this could finally be the chance that Stefan takes to prove that he can do it and he can be in a committed relationship. At the same time, it's like, Stefan, I don't know if I trust you with Shantae, because it's like, you don't do right. And then Darnell, I'm like, don't fall to temptation to Tammy. Stay strong and faithful to your wife. And we really haven't heard nothing much about Jake, other than he was flirting with some old girls, but it is what it is. I don't know what to give it as a rating yet, but I'm enjoying it. Today is February 3rd. It's about 3:30 in the morning. I just finished part 2 of Cheaters. So much has happened in this book, and I'm really enjoying it. But basically, Stefan and Shantae have gotten into a relationship. His roster has kind of disappeared because Samantha has a man. Brittany has basically admitted that she's still in love with Stefan, but when he basically says he's in a relationship with Shantae, she backs off. And she's like, oh, you'll be calling me in 6 months, basically like she did the last time we left again in a relationship. And Toyomi is off the deep end. She is threatening to kill this man. She wants her stuff back from him. She's not happy with him. Darnell has started an affair with Tammy. Jake has lost Charlotte. He's lost his fiance because she found out about all the stuff that's been going on with him. And we find out the source of his nightmares that he's been having. Jake is a little off the deep end too, just like Toyomi. He's off the deep end too. Shantae and Karen fell out. Lord, bye Karen. And so basically I just finished part 2. I've got about 100 pages left. And so I'm hoping to have this done by later on today. It's later on today, on February 3rd. I just finished Cheaters. I gave it a 4. The third part was good. It was okay. Stefan and Shantae, they broke up because Toyomi and Dawn were being messy. Then at the end of the book, they got back together. And Shantae and Karen got into it again, but they made up. Tammy and Darnell pissed me off. That's all I'm gonna say. Tammy and Darnell pissed me off, especially Darnell, especially the way the story ended with them. Because, like, why would he do that? Like, and Jake never got back together with Charlotte, and we find out what his dreams was all about and like how he addressed it, and I'm gonna have some thoughts on that too. But basically, the book was good. I enjoyed it. 4 stars. I was reading the author's note. He said he wrote, this was the book that came right after Friends and Lovers, so he said he wanted to do a 180 from those characters, which makes sense. You don't want to write the same story twice. But he also said, Oh Lord, there's also this. He cracked a joke in his author notes. If you have never read Eric Jerome Dickey's author notes, you have to. They are so funny and so full of personality. But like, he cracked this joke about how he doesn't get no rest and he'll rest when he gets to the big sleep and he'll snore through eternity. I'm like, well, the big sleep has come for you. Now you're snoring through eternity. And it's like, I'm glad that you left us with such good stories to read. What I really liked about this book was that it felt like my homeboy, one of my homeboys telling me his story. Like a story of what happened to him and his homeboys and his other homeboys. That's what Eric Jerome's stories be feeling like. And I'm like, they're so good. I enjoyed this book. 4 stars. We start Cheaters off with Stefan. He's telling us about this experience from his childhood, the last time he spent time with his father, his biological father. And Stefan is like 7, 8 at this time. We start off with a visit from his biological father who's come in. He's laughing, and the first thing he asks Stefan is, how many women do you have? Because basically, like, to his dad, having multiple women was like a sign of respect for a man. So basically, he lies and says he got about 3 women, and his dad is all proud of him. His dad tells him, oh, I know that's right. Now you a man. We men now. And remember, the most important rule of being a man is to remember the 4 F's, which is to find them, fool them, freak them, and then forget them. And so Stefan carries that around with him. It's like his dad is part-time. His dad is a part-time dad, and his mom is sick of it because she's sick of him coming and going when he please, and he's sick of him running around with all these different women on her. And while his dad is visiting, he has another woman in the car. And so basically, after his dad basically tells him the little sage advice he gave, he runs off with the other woman, and the mama's just over it. She's irritated. And that's the last time he saw his dad. And because that's the last time he saw his dad and he wants to be just like his dad, he decides he's going to be just like his dad. We get caught up to the present day. He is grown. He's running around with all these different women. He has a roster of 3 girls. So there's Samantha. He met Samantha at this chicken and waffles joint. And what he really liked about Samantha was that she had good communication. There's Brittany, who he was in a relationship back in the day, but he messed that up. And then there's Toyomi. Toyomi is like kind of like his main girl. He's got a best friend named Darnell who is married to this real estate agent named Don. Darnell is a lawyer, and he's also a aspiring author. So when Darnell and Don come over, Stefan tells Don to act like she knows Samantha, like they've already met previously. And Don plays along, because she's not sure if she has met Samantha. So she's like, okay. Darnell, Don, Samantha, and Stefan, they go to play racquetball. They go to the gym to hang out. And so while they're at the gym, Samantha and Stefan, they start getting all lovey-dovey with each other. And Darnell and Don, they start like throwing shade at each other. Basically, Darnell's like, oh, Stefan, you're so lucky. You have a girl like Samantha who is, she don't really be requiring too much from you. And basically he jokes and he's like, oh, you better be careful before next thing you know, you have a family on your hands. And Don is like, well, if he ends up with a family on his hands, he'll be farther along than we are. Basically throwing shade back and forth at each other because Don wants to start a family, but Darnell wants to focus on his career as an author. Stefan and Darnell, they get to talking about their other friend, Jake. Jake is a firefighter and he has weird dreams. After we finish that up, we go to our next main character for the book, which is Shantae. She's in a bed with this man named Michael. They doing what they do at 3 in the morning, and somebody starts banging on her door. And so she hears these kids yelling. They yelling, "Daddy, Daddy, come home! Daddy, come home!" Shantae's like, "What is going on? I don't have no kids. Michael, who is at my door?" And so come to find out, Michael's wife is at Shantae's door at 3 in the morning with all his kids, begging him to come back home. And Shantae is like, "You didn't tell me you was married." Had her thinking they was in a relationship and that she was the only one, and come to find out he's married. And so she basically goes off and she's chasing him through the house, throwing stuff at him, going off on him. And he goes out to, appease his wife and go back home with his wife. And Shantae and the wife look at each other and, they just have like a little moment of understanding between their eyes where the wife basically just looks at her like, this is not the first time this has happened. And Shantae, she's heartbroken because she thought this was her man, but it's not. We find out that Shantae tends to attract no good men. We have Michael, who was the married man, and then before Michael, it was this man named Craig, who just one minute they was good, next minute he was gone. She didn't know what happened. After we get through Shantae and her drama, we get to Darnell, who was our third protagonist for this book. Dawn, she doesn't support Darnell's desire to be an author because she feels like, oh, you're a lawyer, so why do you want to waste your time
on being an author, something that might not pan out, something that might not pay the bills, when you're already a lawyer, you already have a good job, and I'm trying to start this family. I don't want to be old having kids, having high-risk pregnancies. I want to start a family now. Darnell and Dawn are having issues because Dawn does not support Darnell. She wants what she wants. Darnell wants to kick off his writing career. And Dawn is like, I didn't sign up for us to be going from career change to career change. You have a good job. We have a good life. Why are you trying to mess this up for us? And basically, Darnell just figures that Dawn really only married him to be married. She didn't really marry him for him. And so that's what we have going on. Those are the three main characters. We have Stefan, who's a serial cheater. We have Shantae, who is serially being cheated on. And we have Darnell, who's having issues with Dawn. We go back to Stefan. He has gone skiing with Jake and Charlotte. They've gone on a ski trip, and he brings Toyomi along. Toyomi brings her friend Char. He notices that Char keeps giving him, like, flirtatious looks. He's not rejecting them. Toyomi is like the jealous type. She doesn't like when other women pay attention to Stefan, and she doesn't like when Stefan pays attention to other women. Because what happens is they see these other girls on the slope, and one of the girls looks at Stefan like she knows him, and Toyomi's like, well, who is that? And Stefan's like, just some random girl waving at another black man skiing. And she's like, nah, that girl waved at you like she knew you. But she doesn't notice that Char, her best friend sitting next to her, is sitting over here sending flirtatious eyes to Stefan, because what Char would do is she'd flirt with him, and then when Toyomi would come back around, she all of a sudden, like nothing happened. They out there skiing, they're having a good time. They go to lunch, and when they go to lunch, Charlotte and the other girls are talking. Char is all over Stefan without making it obvious that she's all over him, and Stefan notices, and he's not, once again, he's not rejecting it. Charlotte, she goes to the bathroom with Toyomi and Char. And, they basically go talk about Charlotte being engaged to Jake. Jake and Stefan talk. We find out that Jake and Charlotte got engaged because Jake wanted to sleep with Charlotte. But Charlotte was like, I'm not giving it up until I got a ring on my finger. So Jake, basically after about 6 months of dating, he took Charlotte to her mom's house and proposed to her. And basically after he proposed to her, Charlotte, she basically decided, okay, I have an engagement ring, that's good enough. And she basically gave up the goods to Jake. And just like Tati said,
in Nani's book, that is a thing. And every time they lose. Every time. I've rarely read a book where they made it through marriage. Even this one book, I forgot what book I was reading, but the girl was like, no marriage, no sex before marriage. So they got engaged, and then she started having sex with him.
Every time. They lose every time. They lose every time. They always say they're going to wait, but they lose every time. They never make it to marriage. I'm like, come on, Charlotte. Jake is engaged to Charlotte. He only got engaged to Charlotte because he wanted to sleep with her, but he has a side chick named Pamela. He loves Charlotte because Charlotte is down for him, but he says that she's disappointing in bed, so that's why he has Pamela as a side chick, because Pamela fulfills his carnal desires. And so then we switch back over to Shantae, and Shantae is with her best friends Karen and Tammy. They are going in on Michael's wife, talking about how she came out the house with rollers and a robe on with her kids, trailing her kids around at 3 a.m. I'm like, y'all going in on the wife, but Shantae, you were the other woman. You were the one that Michael was cheating on her with. But basically, they having girl talk. They decide to go out, go to the store, pick up some groceries, get some food, get some, some alcohol. And while they're in the store, they see this black man who is dating this white woman, and Karen starts picking with the black man. She's like, oh, you're Uncle Tom, you're a Sambo. Karen is a Pan-Africanist. She's a Pan-Africanist. She believes in black love only. Karen is picking with this man, and the man, he gets like frustrated with her, but he doesn't really respond, and his woman drags him away, basically. And Karen's like, oh, I can't believe he would sell out and pick a white woman over us. And I'm like, Karen, why are you picking with this man? This man is minding his business. He in the store minding his business, doing the same thing you supposed to be doing, buying stuff. Leave this man alone. He not messing with you. He not bothering with you. He not thinking about you. You started with him. Karen is picking with the man, and Tammy, Tammy's like, girl, leave that man alone. He ain't bothering you. And, basically, we learned from Shantae that she really don't know too much about Tammy because Tammy keeps a lot of her personal life private. Karen started picking with everybody. First, she's picking with that man. And then when Tammy and Shantae tell her to cut it out, she starts picking with Shantae, going in on her about Craig. And we find out that what happened with Shantae and Craig is that Craig is in the army. They were together. They were supposed to go on a date for her birthday. He had planned this huge, gigantic date. They were going to go for dinner, then go see the Phantom of the Opera play live. It was front row, front and center. She was super excited. And then on the day of the date, Craig is nowhere to be found. At first, she's like, oh my gosh, I've been stood up. But then she starts panicking, thinking something's wrong because he's not picking up the phone. So she goes out to see him and she finds out that he's transferred away. And he knew for like a month that he was transferring and he said nothing. He just got her hopes up and then just disappeared. And so basically, Shantae is really hurt from that. While they were having girl talk, Karen reveals that Craig has come back and that Craig asked her out. And Shantae's like, okay, he asked you out. I don't believe that. Like, is he serious? And Karen, she's like, oh yeah, he asked me out and I basically told him no. Karen just goes in on her about her love life and asks her how many men has she been with. And Shantae's like, that's none of your business. And they just go back and forth. They get into it and then they make up. And so at this point, we find out that Karen is bitter. Karen is bitter because she's been engaged 3 times. And each engagement has fell through. She has her wedding dress hanging up in her apartment, in the plastic wrap, just hanging there, just out in the open in her apartment. And Shantae's like, Karen, you need to at least put your wedding dress up. And Karen's like, no, I'm gonna leave it out because it's a sign of what I want from men that I bring into my home. And the way Karen just be talking to Shantae, she's bitter. I peeped it from like the first interaction. I was like, Karen is bitter, and she's jealous of Shantae. For whatever reason, she's jealous of Shantae. That much was obvious because the way she was talking to her was just like, you're talking like you jealous of this girl. Like, you're not this girlfriend for real. We also find out that Tammy is an aspiring actress. We find out that Tammy had been cast in the same sitcom that Leonard from Friends and Lovers was cast in before he died. And I was like, Eric, you didn't have to bring Leonard back up. You could have, we didn't need a rehash. We didn't need a reminder of what happened to Leonard. Basically, we find out that Tammy was cast in that sitcom and basically Leonard dying messed up her bag. I was like, dang. Leonard's death messed up Tammy's career. That could have been her big break. So then we go back to Stefan. Stefan is waiting on Brittany to show up. Brittany is the girl he used to date back in the day. They dated, but they weren't in a relationship. Like, they were still in like the early phases of figuring it out. And then he fell in love with Michelle. He let Brittany know, hey, I'm really feeling this girl, Michelle. And Brittany was like, well, okay. Well, in 6 months, you'll be calling me. And Brittany was right. Literally 6 months on the dot, Michelle left Stefan to go back to her ex. And he was calling Brittany. And so basically, Brittany and Stefan are friends with benefits. She has her own man named Tony. Brittany, she rolls in. They go upstairs. They don't even make it to the apartment. Brittany's like, I want to do it out here on the porch. And I'm like, y'all nasty. But they do it on the porch. And then after they get done, Stefan's like, you want to come in for a while and chill? Brittany's like, nope, gotta go. Because I was following Tony. And we was going someplace. It was unexpected. I told Tony I would follow him, and she's basically like, I'm going to pretend like I got lost, and I was trying to figure out how to get back to the highway, and so basically that's her alibi for why she was not following Tony, why she disappeared for a good about 30 minutes, because that's how long they was together, about 30 minutes. Brittany leaves. Stefan, he's feeling lonely, so he calls Samantha, and a man answers Samantha's phone, and he doesn't like that. Stefan is like one of those guys where it's like, I can sleep around with all these women, but the women I sleep around with, they shouldn't have any other men. That's the type of guy he is. And so basically, Stefan is lonely because Brittany is with Tony. Samantha has a man, and he don't really want to deal with Tony because she kind of clingy. And she's like, and after like talking with Jake and Charlotte, she's kind of like hinting that she wants more from Stefan. She's like, I want an actual relationship. And so basically, he's like, He not feeling it because he want to keep his roster. We find out the backstory on what happened with his mom and his dad. So basically, Stefan's mom, she decided she was done with him. So she put on her best clothes, went on down to his job, and basically confronted him and his woman. His dad tried to talk him down, and Stefan's mom was not hearing it. She pulled out a gun on him. She shot at him, shot at his woman, shot up his job, and then she went home, burnt up all his clothes, and that was that. And Stefan never saw his dad again. His dad's best friend, Jeremiah Mitchell, came by and started like leaving groceries for them. And so basically that's how his mom got together with Jeremiah. And so basically Jeremiah is Stefan's stepfather, and he calls him Pops. And Stefan doesn't like Pops. he doesn't like Pops because he feels like Pops treats him differently from how he treats his brothers and sisters. So Stefan has one brother that he shares with their father. He has two siblings that are Pops. Stefan and Pops, they don't see eye to eye. And so basically Stefan is lonely, and in the middle of the night he gets a phone call from Jake. Jake is, he's having his nightmares. He needs someone to talk to. When Jake calls Stefan, Stefan hears like a clicking. He's like, oh, something's wrong with your phone. And Jake's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna talk to Charlotte about it. We're gonna get it fixed. After the whole fiasco with Michael, Shantae has gone on to a new guy, Tahid. He's trying to impress her. He's buying her all these gifts, buying her friends, all this stuff. He's spending all this money on her to impress her, to get her to like him. And Shantae, she's still kind of hung up on Craig because, he's back and she wants some closure with him about why he just up and disappeared. Tahid, he balling, but he didn't last long because Shantae finds out about Tahid's roster. He has a roster of several women. The most notable are Peaches and Nina. And basically, Shantae, instead of confronting him, Tammy helped her get his answering machine connected to her service. So every time he got a message, she would be able to hear it. She decides to hook up with Craig again, get some closure. He stands her up again, and she's upset about it. Toyomi, she calls Stefan in the middle of the night. She's like, Stefan, what are we? And Stefan, he basically like smooth talk his way out of it because he knows Toyomi wants more, but he don't really want more with Toyomi because she's clingy, and he's like, he wants to keep his roster. Later that day, he gets a call from Shar. Shar is talking about, oh, Stefan, I seen the way you've been looking at me, and I know you see the way I'm looking at you. And she basically shoots her shot. And Stefan, the dummy that he is, does not realize it's a setup. Basically, Shar talking about she want to come see him, she want to spend time with him, to get together. And Stefan like, oh, so what you trying to do? Stefan don't realize it's a setup because he's a dummy. He start hearing crying in the background. He like, Shar, is that you crying? And lo and behold, Toyomi's on the phone too. She starts going off. Toyomi basically tells him he ain't crap. She wants her stuff back. Stefan's like pleading with her, like, oh, Toyomi, please, no, please wait. It ain't what you seem. Basically trying to make it seem like Shar came on to him. And basically Shar's like, see, I told you he wasn't no good. I told you he was trying to cheat on you and all this type of stuff. So basically they hang up. Stefan is freaking out. He's coming up with a way to explain to Toyomi, basically like, it isn't what it seems. Shar set me up. She came on to me. He's trying to figure out how to get Toyomi back. Because like I said, Toyomi is his main chick out of all his roster. She's the one that he has the most connection with. He hops in his car. He's driving super fast down to get down there where she at, and he about halfway through realizes he don't have no gas in his car. So he pulls over at a gas station, realizes he ain't got his wallet. Calls Jake, no answer. Calls Darnell, no answer. So he just has to sit at the gas station and wait on somebody to call him back because he don't have no money. He's on E, and so he can't get no gas, and he just got to sit there and wait. Shantae, she's out on a date with Tahid. Because she knows about Tahid's roster now, she's not really like as interested in him as she was before. And so basically Tahid's, he trying to get her attention, trying to get her, spitting game, stuff like that. And she not really paying him no mind. And she also has set up another date with Craig to meet to get closure from him. So he's basically trying to convince her to hang out with him. She's like, no, I got somewhere to go. I got somewhere to go. And so she leaves him high and dry. He's confused. He's following her. And so basically she ditches him. And as she's driving, her car breaks down. So she basically is able to pull off into the exit and pull into the same gas station that Stefan is at. She gets out the car. She starts going off at the car. She kicking it, screaming it. Stefan is watching the whole thing. She sees him watching her, and she basically asks him, do you know anything about fixing cars? And so Stefan's like, yeah, I do. They meet, they talk. They don't really get to know each other. They're just talking while he fixes her car. And then she pays for his gas. He continues on to go try and win back Toyomi. And Shantae goes off to go meet up with Craig. And so basically they just have a chance encounter, and they don't even exchange names with each other. Stefan goes to see Toyomi. He pulls up. All his stuff is outside on the ground, ruined, torn to shreds, ruined. Toyomi starts throwing stuff at him. She cracks his windshield. She causes some dents in his car. Shar is on the balcony with her, going off on him. Her cousin is out there too, going off. They all going off. They throwing soda at him. All the neighbors is outside watching the drama go down. Stefan is pleading. He's trying to get Toyomi to listen to him. She's not listening. She's not paying him no mind. And so basically, he gets in his car, drives off. Basically, accepts defeat. And about 10 minutes later, he gets hit from behind. He gets rear-ended. He looks behind him. It's Toyomi. And She is basically, Toyomi is trying to kill this man. She is trying to kill this man. She's trying to run him off the road. Like, she is literally trying to kill this man. She is screaming at him. She is throwing stuff at, she's still throwing more cans of soda at his car. She is running him down. He's basically like driving for his life, trying to escape her. And he's like, she has like this look in her eye that is like, it's crazy. He is scared of her. She follows him for like a good distance, and basically like she screams at him one final time. She just drives away. She goes back home. And Stefan is like, he thinks that's the end of it. He's like, he's scared of Toyomi. He's like, he can't believe that side of her was in her. And basically that's it. He drives off, goes back home. That's it. So while Toyomi is on the highway trying to kill this man, Shantae, she goes meet with Craig. Craig actually shows up for once. It's a miracle. He's like acting like he's disinterested in meeting with her. Like he's only meeting with her because just to get it over with. She's talking, she's trying to figure out why he left like that, why he did her like that. And basically he reveals that he left because he wasn't feeling her no more. That's basically what he said. She's like, why did you leave? He's like, I wasn't feeling you no more. So he just up and left because he wasn't feeling her no more. Craig just looking at her like he just trying to get like one for the road and call it a day. And Shantae is like, did you even ever respect me? And Craig is like, no. He's like, no. And I'm like, Craig, what the world? The audacity. The audacity. You couldn't even say you couldn't even say I'm not feeling you no more. You couldn't at least tell the girl like you real life planned a whole and just left. Like I was flabbergasted. I was like, the audacity. Like you just up and left. Like, wow, okay. He's on jerk mode. So Shantae, she realizes Craig never respected her, never respected their relationship. Craig is like, we gonna eat away. And Shantae's like, yeah, we can eat. Go ahead, order. They order. Shantae like, I'm going to the bathroom. She get up, she goes to the bathroom. She notices Craig looking at her, checking her out. And she like basically, kind of give like flirtatious vibes back. And as soon as like Craig turn around, she beelines for the exit. She gone. She go home. Tahid waiting on her. Tahid like, where you been? Shantae like, where I went. She and Tahid get into it. Tahid is like, I know you was with another guy. Tell me the truth. Da 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 da. Shantae basically tells him, oh, I know you've been seeing Peaches. I know you've been seeing Nina. They get into it. Tahid, first he tries to beg Shantae to stay. Shantae's not trying to hear. She's like walking away. So then Tahid, he kind of like gets this look in his eyes that's like, basically like, oh, you gonna stay with me. He start following Shantae, and Shantae, she start getting scared. And so basically Tahid leaves, and she's like, she's like, Tahid is not it. Stefan comes home. Toyomi has written a message in red paint on this man's door, letting everybody know this man is a cheater. He will sleep with your best friend. Don't deal with him. And so basically he starts trying to like scrape the message off his door, but it's not coming off. His neighbor Rebecca comes out and basically it's like, oh yeah, I saw that girl. She did this. She was out here doing all types of stuff to your door. I was wondering what was going on. Rebecca is his nosy neighbor. She always in his business trying to figure out what's going on. And she just talking at the mouth and talking outside her neck about stuff. And Stefan is like, well, Rebecca, if you're gonna stay here and talk, do you have like some paint remover I can use to get the paint off my door? And so Rebecca's like, oh yeah, sure, let me go get it for you. So while she's getting it, Jake and Darnell show up, and basically the three of them are going to the club. But they see the message and they start going in on him. They're like, oh, she found out. Basically they knew he was cheating. And so basically they start going in on him about it. Rebecca comes back with the paint remover. Stefan starts removing the paint off his door, but it removes too much paint. But it doesn't remove the lettering of the words, and so it's like his door is ruined. He has to paint over his door, basically. They go out to the club. Jake, he running around flirting with every girl he see. Tammy and Darnell, they start flirting. They basically, exchange details because, like I said, Tammy's an aspiring actress and she's also a writer, so she connects with Darnell on that writing level. But Stefan feels like Darnell is flirting with Tammy. Jake getting his flirt on. He flirts with Karen. Karen's like, no. And basically Stefan tries to like check them both because he's like, y'all got good women at home. Y'all shouldn't be doing this. And I'm like, Stefan, how you gonna try and check your friends about being in committed relationships? How about they got good women at home, but you got a whole roster? And he's like, nah, Darnell, no. You married. You shouldn't be flirting with this girl. And Darnell's like, basically like, mind your business. It's just, we just talking about writing. It ain't nothing serious. At the club, Shantae and Stefan, they run into each other again. They finally introduce themselves to each other, and they get together. Shantae and Karen, they get into it again. And I'm like, Karen is a hater. She's jealous. And she asked Shantae again, how many men have been in your bed? We find out two things about Karen. First, we find out that Karen, she got a little extra merchandise from her job that she can't afford because, money is tight around her parts. Tammy and Shantae like, where you get all this extra stuff? And Karen's like, oh, I got it with my discount. And they're like, your discount don't pay for all this. And so basically, they start suspecting that Karen is boosting, that she is stealing out of the store that she works at. But Karen's like, it's nothing, mind your business, mind your business. And then we also find out that back when Craig and Shantae first got together, we find out that Craig originally approached Karen, but then his eyes kind of moved over to Shantae because I guess he found Shantae more interesting. And so this is kind of when we start getting the picture of what the issue is between Karen and Shantae. This is kind of when I started being like, okay, Karen is jealous of Shantae because she feels like Shantae is always stealing men that she feels are interested in her. She's just jealous of Shantae. And I'm like, she's jealous. Karen is not Shantae's real friend because she's jealous of her. Darnell and Tammy, they meet up later on outside the club. Darnell gives Tammy his manuscript, and Tammy gives Darnell her script for a play. And so basically, they're just exchanging writing to critique each other. And, they flirting a little bit more. And while they out there talking, Deborah shows up. Deborah from Friends and Lovers. We find out that Deborah knows Darnell and Dawn, and she also knows Tammy and Shantae and Karen. And so basically, Deborah, she comes out of a bookstore. Tammy's like, hey, girl. They get together, they talking. We get an update on the Friends and Lovers characters. Tyrell and Shelby, they're still together. They're doing really well. They're playing auntie and uncle to Leonard Jr. Deborah's doing really well. She's still single. She's still not over Leonard. But basically, Deborah, she kind of notices. You know how Deborah is. She be noticing everything. So she kind of notices, something going on between Darnell and Tammy. But she keep quiet about it. She don't say nothing about it. She just mind her business, going about her day. Basically, Darnell and Tammy, they exchange writing, and then, they part ways. Basically, trying to keep it platonic. And at this point, I'm knowing that, it's probably gonna get deeper, but I'm like, dang, this could have been a really good platonic friendship. I know the name of the book is Cheaters, but we didn't have to have a romantic relationship between these two. This could have been a really good platonic friendship. Darnell and Tammy, they part ways before things get too heavy. And Darnell, he goes to the park, he sits down, he starts writing down people's conversations, starts writing down what he hears. Basically, kind of to work on dialogue for his book. And I'm like, Darnell, shoot, Darnell, give me some tips, because, that's a good idea, I could use that in my writing, But that's a good idea. Let me kind of steal that. I'm just saying. While he's sitting there working on dialogue, Tammy comes back. Tammy's like, Darnell, this book is really good. I was reading it as I was walking, and I had to come back and tell you it was really good. And they basically admit that they have some level of attraction for each other. But because Darnell is married, they don't want to take it there. They share a stage kiss, and then they part ways again. When Darnell comes home, he sees Dawn. She's getting back from her job as a real estate agent. Darnell sees her. He starts trying to be her husband. That's how he put it. He starts trying to be her husband. She's like, wait, I got groceries here. Hold on. It's all these people out here. We in the garage. Hold on. What you doing? And basically Darnell's like, I'm just trying to be your husband. Can you let me be your husband? And Dawn is like, well, shoot, at least pull the garage door down. Dang. And so basically they have that moment, but while he's being her husband, in his mind, he's picturing that he's doing it with Tammy. Stefan went to visit Shantae because he had promised to fix her oil. So he goes over to see her. He changes her oil. They're flirting. They have an intimate moment, and basically, they're like, it's just gonna be a one and done. That's it. And they go about their lives. And so then Darnell, he's back home. He's working on his writing again. Dawn, she comes back home from where she was at. And Darnell's like, oh, she told me she was going this one place, but she wasn't where she said she was. So he starts suspecting that something might be going on. And so Dawn comes home. She's like, what are you doing? And Darnell's like, I'm working. And she's like, well, what are you working on? Legal stuff? And Darnell's like, I'm working on my book. And she's like, oh, you just playing. So once again, Dawn is like, I don't know why you're trying to be an author. I don't know why you're trying to ruin what we worked so hard for. And so basically, Darnell, he started working because his train of thought is broken. So he sits and talks with Dawn. Dawn is like, I didn't enjoy what happened between us the other day in the garage. And Darnell's like, what do you mean? And Dawn is like, I felt really uncomfortable. You kind of just pushed yourself onto me, and you just, I didn't enjoy it. And so Darnell is like, are you saying that I assaulted you? And Dawn is like, well, what do you think? You come home, you force yourself onto me, you're really rough with it, and you didn't even check to see like if I really wanted it or anything like that. You just came home and did it, and basically just kind of acquiesced to it. And Darnell's like, so you're saying I assaulted you? And Dawn is like, well, what do you think? And so that upsets Darnell. So he gets up and he leaves the house because he's kind of in shock. He's like, my wife just said I assaulted her. It's like, but we were just having a moment between man and wife. And I'm like, Darnell, you weren't having a moment between man and wife because you were thinking about Tammy when you were doing this. You were imagining that you were doing it with Tammy. Darnell leaves. He's upset. Stefan, he gets a call from Toyomi. Toyomi, she wants her stuff back. Stefan is like, I'm not giving you the stuff back because you gave it to me as a gift. Toyomi basically threatens to kill him again. She's like, I can't believe I didn't see through you and Char sooner. I should have known that you was no good. I should have known Char was fake. Toyomi, she threatens Stefan. She like, I want my stuff back. Give my stuff back. Darnell, after he leaves, he goes to visit Jake. Jake is talking all this crap. Talking about all this, what I would do to keep my woman in check. All that type of bull crap. And so basically, he advises Darnell to one and done Tammy. Don't try to play it out because what's going to end up happening is she going to want more. And he also reveals that he's met this Latina girl and he's going to go hook up with her too. He wants his cake and he want to eat it too. Like, he loves Charlotte. He wants Charlotte to himself, but he also wants his fill of other women. He doesn't want to limit himself to one woman because he's like, I can't limit myself to one woman for the rest of my life. Like, I can't just go on being with one woman. It's like, it's too many different women out here for me to appreciate, for me to do that. And so after Darnell talks to Jake, he goes to talk to Tammy. Tammy basically reveals that she's seeing this guy named Bobby, but she's not really feeling him. She's really feeling Darnell. And they're both like weakening on not having an affair. Their feelings are growing stronger and their resolve is weakening. So Shantae and Stefan, they go to a club where the band that Tammy sang at the first club, they're performing. So Tahid is there, Karen is there, but Shantae doesn't see her, and Craig is there. Stefan and Shantae, they see each other at this club. They teasing each other, they acting like they not really interested in each other like that, but it's like, y'all are interested in each other. Stop. So they grow and they feeling stronger. Shantae and Stefan, they decide to go home. They have the intimate moment, but they're still hesitant about their feelings towards each other. And so Shantae decides this is not going to become a regular thing. This is going to be a one and done because she doesn't want to be hurt again because she's still, kind of dealing with the pain from Craig and Michael. So she's like, I don't want to go through this again. So this is just going to be a one and done with Stefan. Tammy, Karen, and Shantae, I believe, have another girls' night, and that's where Tammy talks about everything that's going on with Darnell with them. We find out that Karen has a hard life. She's had a hard life growing up, and Shantae really cares about her because of that. And so she really wants to help Karen. She's like, Karen, if you ever need money or like stuff like that, you can come to me. And Karen basically like, girl, mind your business. Shantae is trying harder to be Karen's friend than Karen is trying to be Shantae's friend because Shantae cares about Karen. Shantae wants Karen to be doing well out here. She doesn't want Karen to be out here struggling, but Karen's like, girl, mind your business, and basically brings up once again how many men have been in your bed. I was over Karen. I was over her. She's getting on my nerves. Tammy and Darnell link up again. She takes Darnell to meet her family because Darnell expressed interest in wanting to get to know Tammy on a deeper level. And so Tammy's like, if you really want to get to know me, I'll take you to see where I came from. So she takes Darnell to go see her family. Her family's super dysfunctional. The only one who seems to genuinely care about Tammy is her mom. Her stepdad is an alcoholic. Her sisters, they don't treat Tammy with no respect. Basically, her family don't treat her with no respect. And so we find out that it's Tammy's birthday, and that's why they've gone over to celebrate Tammy's birthday. But nobody really cares that it's Tammy's birthday. They just there to kind of like get some food and go. And so Tammy basically, she leaves upset. And she's like, you see, this is why I didn't really want to bring you out here. This is why nobody really knows this about me. Every time I try to like show love to them, they treat me so dirty. They do me wrong. She basically like, when I make it big, I'm going to forget about them. But she's worried that when she makes it big, somebody's going to reveal like this about her, like this part of her life about her, and embarrass her in public. And we also find out that Tammy was previously pregnant. She has a child with her stepbrother, but they were in a relationship before they were step siblings. And then when she got pregnant, that's how her mom met her stepbrother's dad. And so that's how they became step siblings. And so she had the baby and she gave it up for adoption. Stefan, he goes to visit his family. Pops confronts him. Pops like, you got all these girls calling my house. You need to get your stuff together. You need to get your stuff in line. You need to do better with your life. Pops annoyed me. He just came off so self-righteous. Basically, like, every time he was talking to Stefan, he would be talking down to Stefan, and then he'd be like, it's a thankless job stepping in to fill in another man's shoes, and like, I've stepped in to fill in another man's shoes, and I don't get no thanks for that. I'm like, well, Pops, you didn't have to do that. Nobody asked you to come in and play savior to this woman and her 2 sons. You didn't have to. Nobody asked you to do that. You did that of your own accord. How you gonna do something and then be like, I don't get no thanks for it? Like, Pops got on my nerves all his sermonizing. Stefan is like, why you be treating me differently from like my other siblings? And basically Pops is like, because you just like your daddy and you look just like him. Basically, Pops is still grudging against Stefan's father because he didn't like the way that the whole situation played out. After Stefan goes to visit his family, he gets a call from Brittany, and Brittany wants to meet up. So he and Brittany meet up. Brittany reveals that Tony has an STD, and Brittany discovers that she also has an STD. And so she's meeting up with Stefan to find out if Stefan is the one who gave her the STD. And Stefan's like, no, I don't have an STD. And so basically they talk. Brittany reveals that she still cares about Stefan, but she will never be in a relationship with him because of how he did her over the whole Michelle situation. And that really hurt her because she was like, I thought we was going to be together. I thought we was going to be something, and you just come and you tell me you in love with this other girl. And I'm like, well, dang, that's messed up. So basically she's fine with sleeping with him, but she's not going to ever be in a relationship with him because he did her dirty over that. And basically Stefan, he kind of regrets that he did Brittany like that, and he also regrets that he did Samantha and Toyomi the way that he's done them. And once again, he's feeling lonely. He feels alone because he's like, he don't have nobody. Brittany got a man, Samantha got a man, and Toyomi is trying to kill him. This is around the moment that he starts starting to realize that his daddy's lifestyle was not it. Having all these different women, that's not the type of legacy he wants to leave when he leaves the earth. That's not the type of lifestyle he wants to lead, because he starts reflecting on when his father died, how basically when his father died, nobody was at his funeral. None of the women he got around with, nobody, not even his friends, nobody. He had nobody. He died lonely. And so Stefan's like, I don't want to die lonely like my father. And he also starts realizing that he's developing feelings for Shantae. And so he goes home, and Rebecca basically lets him know that Toyomi was basically trying to get into his house to get her stuff. She had a key made, but the key don't work. And so basically, after she couldn't get in, she just messed up his door again. So he got to get his door repainted again. Shantae drops by. They have another intimate moment. And basically, they wasn't the one and done. And while they're in the middle of having their intimate moment, Stefan gets a call from Jake. Jake is freaking out, and so Stefan, basically, he and Shantae, they go over to another part of LA to see what's going on. Stefan follows Jake's instructions, and he waits by a light pole. This Latino man, he comes walking out the house, and he peeks inside their car, and his face is bloody, and Shantae freaks out, and so the man, he runs off, and he starts going through the bushes. It's like he going through the bushes, and then this Latina woman come running out behind him. They start arguing. They get into it. They go back inside. And so after they go back inside, Jake comes running out the bushes, and he dives into the car, and he's like, go, 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 go. We find out that Jake got caught up with his Latina woman that he met at the club. And that the man who had come out looking through the bushes and looking in the car with the bloody face, that was the Latina woman's husband. Basically, Jake and the Latina woman, they was having them a little get together. The husband came home. They all get into it. They going at it. The husband tries to shoot Jake while the husband and the wife are wrestling for the gun. Jake grabs a lamp and basically breaks over the husband's head, knocking him out. The wife starts going off on Jake. He grabs his cell phone and a wallet, and he leaves. They leave out. And basically, when Jake calls Stefan, he told Stefan to bring some flour, eggs, and some Crisco with him. Jake tells Stefan to go to the parking garage. And Jake gets out, and he ruins this woman's car. He throws all the eggs, the flour, the Crisco on the woman's car and ruins her car. And Shantae is like, this is not cool. What are we doing? And Stefan's like, it's not cool, but I can't control Jake. And so basically, Shantae starts looking at Stefan differently. She's like, you friends with Jake. And if Jake get around like this, and you know what they say, birds of a feather, they flock together. So if Jake acts like this, do you act like this too? As they're driving away, Jake realizes he grabbed the wrong wallet. He grabbed the husband's wallet instead of his wallet. And so he's freaking out because now the husband knows where he lives. They drop Jake off at home, and then Shantae and Stefan go back to their house. And this is when we find out that Rebecca is in a relationship with another one of Stefan's neighbors, Juan. And so basically the next day, Stefan goes to get Jake to take him to go get his car. But before he can, Charlotte corners Stefan. And she's basically like, so Stefan, where did you and Jake go last night? And Stefan, he don't know what to say because they didn't have no backstory worked out. He just thought he was just coming to get Jake. And so Charlotte's like, Stefan, can I see you in the kitchen for a minute? Jake trying to plead his case. Charlotte's not paying him no mind. Basically, Stefan goes in the house. Charlotte got all her like friends over there, including Dawn, and they over there showing her moral support. And they leave the house at Charlotte's request. And basically, Charlotte talks to Stefan. She reveals that she's known for quite a while that Jake was cheating on her. She reveals that the husband called Charlotte last night and basically revealed that Jake had slept with his wife. She also reveals that she had tapped her phones, which is the clicking that Stefan heard on the phone when he was talking to Jake. And she also reveals that she's known for quite a while about Pamela. She stayed with Jake because she was hoping that Jake would see the error in his ways and finally commit to her, but she realizes that she was hoping for too much. Charlotte also reveals that Jake knows exactly what his dreams are about. He knows exactly what his nightmares are about, and he just doesn't want to come to terms with the truth. She puts Jake out and she breaks off the engagement. Charlotte basically gives Stefan the tapes of the recordings of his phone calls. She tells Jake, listen to these recordings. And so basically Stefan starts playing the recordings for Jake in the car, and Jake realizes that Charlotte has been recording their phone calls, all of their phone calls for quite a while. All of the evidence of him cheating on her is on them phone calls. Him saying that she was bad in bed is on the phone calls. And basically also revealing that Darnell knew that Jake was cheating. Stefan knew too, but Dawn goes back home. She confronts Darnell. She's like, Darnell, did you know about Jake having an affair on Charlotte? He kind of just weasels his way out of it, and they talk about what went down between them, their last conversation, where basically Dawn insinuated that Darnell assaulted her. They talk about it. Darnell talks about how that really hurt his feelings because he thought they were having a moment as man and wife. And Dawn doubles down saying she was uncomfortable about it. They talk a little bit about their issues. Once again, they talk about the same stuff. Dawn is talking about how she feels like Darnell is wasting what they've worked so hard for. She basically, starts letting loose a little bit like, oh, well, Darnell, you trying to ruin what we've worked so hard for, and you've also let yourself go. Your looks is not what they used to be. That kind of hurts Darnell's feelings because he's like, well, dang, like you're saying I assaulted you, I'm not pleasing you, I'm not satisfying you, and you don't support what I do. Dawn basically tries to backtrack a little bit, kind of tries to soften the blow a little bit. And Darnell, he's not having it. He's like, no, you're trying to put a band-aid over our issues instead of working through them. Darnell feels unloved. He feels unwanted. He just feels very self-conscious because he feels like Dawn is not pleased with him. And it's like, it hurts him. And this is also the moment when Dawn reveals that she knows about Tammy. She starts, questioning who Tammy is and stuff like that. And they get into it over it. And Dawn is like, she's worked so hard for this marriage. She's worked so hard for this life. And basically she feels owed. She stuck by his side when he was in law school and they were struggling. And she feels owed for that. She's like, she wants her retribution for sticking by his side in law school when they was down bad and their marriage was on the rocks. Like, you're the problem with the marriage, because you're trying to ruin everything we worked so hard for. I'm like, no, Dawn. Darnell is half of the problem with the marriage. He's half of the problem. You're the other half. He keeps communicating with you that he wants your support, but you don't want to support him because you don't want to give up your comfortable life. You don't want to start trying new things out because you won't support him. He's running off to find support elsewhere with Tammy. And so it's like, y'all are both the problem in the marriage because y'all are not on the same page. While Dawn and Darnell are going at it, Tammy, Karen, and Shantae, they meet up again to celebrate Tammy's birthday. They get to talking about their love lives. Basically, Tammy's like, I'm in love with this aspiring writer, but he's married, and I don't know what to do. But she doesn't reveal that it's Darnell, but Shantae and Karen are not stupid. They know who Darnell is because they met him, and so they can put the pieces together. Shantae talks about how she's feeling Stefan, but she's kind of scared to commit, and Karen, of course, Karen does what Karen does. Starts going in on Shantae. Ask her once again, how many men been in your bed? They go back and forth, but Tammy's like, oh, guys, please stop. It's my birthday, not tonight. And so they kind of just table the discussion. Stefan, he's lonely. And he gets a call from Samantha. He questions Samantha on who the man was that answered her phone. And Samantha's like, oh, that was my cousin's husband. They were down here staying for the week. Gives a weak excuse for who answered her phone. But Stefan, just like Karen and Shantae are not stupid, Stefan is not stupid either. He knows it wasn't her cousin's husband that answered the phone, but he doesn't say anything about it. He gets a phone call from Toyomi. Toyomi's still on that. She want her stuff. She want to kill Stefan. I'm not giving you the stuff because you gave it to me as a gift. And Toyomi's like, if you think I'm gonna let you be having some other girl watching my TV that I pay for, listen to my radio that I pay for, you got another thing coming. I want my stuff. And Toyomi's like, you know what? I'm gonna make your life a living hell. Darnell and Tammy, they get together again. They meet at Tammy's house to discuss their writing. Tammy had just got out the shower, so she's like, oh well, let me put some clothes on first. So she go to put clothes on. Darnell, he needs to use the bathroom. He's like, where the bathroom at? Tammy's like, oh, it's this way towards my room to the left. And so he goes down there, but instead of going to the bathroom, he goes to Tammy's room. And he sees her kind of like undressed. And Tammy, you know, she's not like, oh my gosh, get out. She kind of just allows him to see her undressed. They have words. They sit on the bed together, share another stage kiss, then share a real kiss. And then they stop it right there because they're like, no, we can't do this. Their resolve is getting even weaker, but they still trying not to have an affair. They stop what they're doing. Tammy gets dressed. They go sit down at the table. They talk about the writing. Because now they've had this real kiss, they're like, the attraction is there. Tammy, you know, she reveals that the band that she was singing with earlier in the book has invited her to go with them to Paris to perform. And she's like, I would be crazy to turn out going to Paris for free. She and Darnell, they make this plan to basically share an intimate moment before she leaves. Shantae, she decides to finally put her feelings on the line and enter into a relationship with Stefan. So they have another intimate moment on tape. Karen, Shantae, and Tammy, they go down to like this bar that's like also a pool hall. And so while they're down there, this guy from Birmingham starts hitting on them. And, you know, Karen, she loves male attention. So, you know, she's jumping at the fact that a man is hitting on her. But the man kind of, like, just like with Craig, how he started off with Karen and then his attention kind of shifted towards Shantae. The guy from Birmingham, his attention starts shifting towards Shantae. And Shantae, you know, she's really like brushing him off. You know, she's really not paying him no mind because she just got into a relationship with Stefan. So she's not paying him no mind. She's really trying to hype up Karen. You know, she's like, oh, well, you know, Karen, you know, she go to school. And he's like, oh, where you go to school? Oh, community college. He's like, oh, community college. And so basically, like, Shantae's like, oh, well, you know, community college fine, but she go to school, and, you know, she got her a job as a secretary. Basically, really trying to hype Karen up to this man, you know, trying to help Karen out, be wing woman. Karen's like, I'm an administrative assistant. And Shantae's like, what? Karen's like, I'm an administrative assistant. I'm not a secretary. And Shantae's like, well, it's the same thing. And Karen's like, it's not the same thing. I'm an administrative assistant. The guy, you know, he realizes Shantae's not really feeling him, and he's not really all that interested in Karen. So he ducks off. Tammy is super drunk. She is so drunk she cannot help herself out. They take Tammy home. Shantae trying to get Tammy situated. She asks Karen for help. Karen's like, oh, let Tammy worry about herself. Let her figure herself out. And I'm like, well, dang, Karen, you really is no real friend. Because I can understand you being pissed off at Shantae, but you ain't even gonna help Tammy, your other supposed to be best friend. You can't even put your stuff aside to help her get situated. So Shantae gets Tammy situated. Karen and Shantae get into it. Karen is like, you just had to steal all the attention from me again. You do this all the time. Shantae is like, what are you talking about? Basically, Karen starts going off. She's like, you always stealing men's attention away from me. And then you sitting up here, you trying to play me like I'm broke, talking about something. If I need help, I can come to you. I don't need your help, Shantae. She just starts going off, letting all her jealousy out. And Shantae, you know, she gets upset. They are going at it. They are into it. It's just a hot mess. Shantae, she's still trying to get Tammy situated. And Karen's like, both of y'all is pathetic. You sleeping with every man in existence, and this one can't hold a liquor, and she trying to sleep with a married man. Karen puts her hands on Shantae, so Shantae kicks her out. I'm like, bye, Karen. Bye, because you wasn't no real friend in the first place. So Jake, his nightmares are getting worse. He's still hung up on Charlotte. He is sending her flowers every day. He's popping up at her job. He is stalking her because he does not want to accept that Charlotte has left him. And so Charlotte files to get a restraining order on him. And Stefan questions Jake on what his nightmares are about. And Jake reveals that all of the people he sees in his dreams that are trying to kill him, those are like all of the children that he forced his the girls he had slept with who got pregnant to basically handle and get rid of. And so basically Stefan is like, oh my gosh. After Stefan and Darnell get done checking on Jake and basically tell him you need to leave Charlotte alone, Darnell basically reveals to Stefan that he plans on having a rendezvous with Tammy. And he basically guilts Stefan into covering for them because he's like, I've covered for you so many times when you was out creeping, so you can cover for me this one time. And Stefan reluctantly agrees. He doesn't want to because he's like, you should be creeping around on Dawn like this. And Stefan is also like, since he's trying not to creep no more, he's holding his friends to the same standard. Stefan's family has this thing called Soul Food Sunday. His mom wants to have the family over every Sunday to have Soul Food Sunday, which she got from the movie Soul Food. You know, Dawn and Shantae, they meet at this Soul Food Sunday, and of course, Shantae, she's like, hey, Darnell, nice to see you. Dawn is like, oh, how do you know Darnell? Shantae's like, oh, I met him through Stefan. Deborah shows up once again to the family function, bringing some food, and we find out that, you know, Deborah also knows Dawn. Deborah's like, oh, hey, Shantae. And Dawn is like, oh, Deborah, you know Shantae? And she's like, yeah, that's Tammy's friend. And so that's kind of what sets off warning bells for Dawn, because she's like, oh, she starts putting the pieces together. She's like, oh, Shantae is Tammy's friend, and Tammy is the same Tammy that Darnell is seeing for writing. While they having Soul Food Sunday, Toyomi shows up. She being messy. She greet everybody at the Soul Food Sunday, all the family members, and she asks who Shantae is. Dawn being messy too. That's Stefan's friend, Soror. And I'm like, oh Lord, here go Dawn being messy. I didn't like Dawn. I didn't like her. Toyomi, she dropped by. The family being all nice to her, sweet to her, and, you know, chopping it up with her, being very disrespectful to Shantae, who Stefan invited over to the house. Stefan's mama's like, oh, Toyomi, get you a plate. And Toyomi's like, oh, I'm not staying long. I just came to see Stefan real quick. You know, Pop's over there eavesdropping. Stefan and Toyomi, they go off to talk. Toyomi reveals that she wants her stuff while they going at it outside. Shantae comes out, and you know, she meets Toyomi, and Stefan introduces Shantae as his date, and that really pisses her off, because right before they went to Soul Food Sunday, Shantae had asked Stefan to be her boyfriend, and he agreed, and so they were boyfriend and girlfriend. But at Soul Food Sunday, he introduces her as his date, and so that pisses her off. Shantae leaves. Toyomi, you know, she's over here like, I messed up your relationship. I'm like, if you want your stuff, you better drop by and get your stuff like ASAP. You get one trip, that's it. Whatever you don't take, I'm selling. And so Toyomi, you know, she's upset about that, and she drives off. Here comes Pops, kicking a man while he's down, talking about something. You brought all this drama around my house, and you need to get your life together. Same old bullcrap you've been spewing on book. Stefan basically asks, Pops, do you love me? Pops, he doesn't say that he loves Stefan, but he's like, I didn't take care of you because I liked you. I didn't take care of you because I loved you. I took care of you because a man had to take the place of another man, and it's such a thankless job. Same as he said before, but I'm like, Pops, you took it upon yourself to take on this role. You can't be like, oh yeah, I did this and y'all not thanking me. And I'm like, whatever. Basically, Stefan, you know, he basically gives Pops the thanks that he's been wanting for all these years. I'm like, Pops, you can't. Let me tell y'all something. Pops and Dawn, them two worked my nerves this whole book. They was annoying. They irritated my soul. We find out the reason Shantae left is because Dawn was being messy. And when Toyomi and Stefan went outside, Dawn basically told Shantae who Toyomi was. And she's like, oh, that's Stefan's ex. Or wait, was that Samantha? Or no, wait, was that Brittany? And basically she lets Shantae know that, you know, Stefan used to get around. And at this point, I was like, on the one hand, Stefan was actually doing right with Shantae. Like, he was actually only committed into the relationship with her. He was not creeping around on her. But at the same time, it's like, Stefan, you really did cause all of this because you didn't resolve all of these issues before you got into the relationship with Shantae. It's like, I feel bad for you, but I don't. Because I know that you were trying to do right with Shantae, but because you didn't resolve everything and didn't close up all them loose ends like Pops told you to before you got in this relationship with Shantae, it's like you brought it on yourself. But I still kind of feel bad for you, only because I know you was actually being faithful for once. Darnell and Dawn take Stefan home because Shantae left him there stranded because they rode together. And basically Dawn tells Stefan that he got what he deserved. Darnell, you know, basically tells Dawn to cut it out. They get into it. Dawn basically indirectly tells Stefan that, once again, talking about Darnell assaulted her. Basically everything that they've been going through. They drop Stefan off at home. He goes in, talks to Shantae. Shantae basically tells him, Stefan, lose my number. Basically, she expresses that she felt really humiliated by the family because they were being disrespectful to Shantae, like treating Toyomi more like family than Shantae was, even though Shantae was the one that Stefan brought over as a date. And this is not their first time meeting Shantae. They met her previously, so they know her. Y'all are trash for treating her like that, because Shantae didn't deserve that. She didn't deserve to be treated like that. She just came to a family function with her boyfriend. She felt humiliated because of how the family treated her when Toyomi walked in, and it didn't help that Stefan basically introduced her as his date instead of as his girlfriend. And so she's like, since I'm your date, then we can just consider it a date and you can lose my number and never speak to me again. Dawn and Darnell get home. She goes off on him at home, basically accuses him of cheating on her with Tammy. Darnell's like, I have not cheated on you with Tammy. They get into it. She walks away. And then Dawn is over here Dawn playing victim. She done wrecked shop over at Stefan's mama house. They basically put all of Darnell business on blast. When they get home, play seductress like, oh Darnell, I'm just missing you, baby. Maybe we just need to spend some. She's like, oh, I'm just really stressed out. And then you're throwing away everything we worked so hard for. And it just feels like you're not here for me. It feels like you're not being my husband. It feels like you're not really here for me. Like I want you to be. Like basically they talk. She plays seductress. They get together. Tammy and Shantae, they end up hanging out. Tammy is like more concerned on getting Shantae and Karen back to being friends. So she takes Shantae over to Karen's house and tries to reconcile them. And basically, Tammy pushes her way into Karen's apartment, and they see Craig in Karen's bed. Shantae and Tammy are shocked. They're like, what is Craig doing here? Shantae, she goes off and she storms out. Tammy storms out. Shantae feels super betrayed by Karen because she's like, I came over here to try to reconcile with you, try to make things right between us, and you over here sleeping with my ex. Shantae washes her hands of Karen. And so while Stefan is basically over here missing Shantae, he hooks up with Samantha again, but it's not like how it was before. And in the middle of doing what they do, a man shows up at Samantha's doorstep looking for her. This man is the man that answered the phone when Stefan called Samantha earlier in the book. And this man is basically trying to marry Samantha. And Samantha only gave him some attention because she was mad at Stefan, because the first note that Toyomi left on Stefan's door in paint, she had gone over there to try and like get with him, and she saw the note and she realized that Stefan was playing her too. That's why she started paying this man attention. This man is a cop, and he wants to marry Samantha, but Samantha's not really feeling him like that. She only got with him as revenge against Stefan because she needed somebody to get over Stefan with. She basically sneaks Stefan out the apartment, and he sneaks out with these two girls coming out of their apartment. Basically, he meets up with them, gets to know them, and one of the girls is like, oh, call me sometime, but Stefan, ditches her number because he's really only wanting to be with Shantae. Shantae, feeling hurt by what went down with Stefan, she goes running back to Tahid. They run into each other at the gym. They work out together, and then they get some food. Shantae fills Tahid in on everything that went on with Stefan. And I'm like, Shantae, don't stop telling these men your business. Stop telling these men who are clearly interested in you your business, because all that's doing is giving them fuel to believe that they have another chance with you. Stop doing it. They eat. They go back to Tahid's house. Tahid, he's trying to do what he wants to do with Shantae. Shantae's like, at first she's allowing it, but then as she starts thinking about Stefan, she's like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And Tahid is not trying to hear it. He basically tries to force himself on Shantae, but Shantae fights him off. And Shantae's like, what are you doing? I told you no. What are you doing? Tahid's like, you're crazy. You can't leave me on like this. You owe me for all the money I spent on you and your friends. Like, you owe me something. And Shantae's like, I don't owe you nothing. And so they get into it. Shantae tries to leave. Tahid stops her. She tries to leave again. Tahid puts his hands on her. Shantae like, you put your hands on me? Okay. All right. Shantae go in the kitchen. She grab a knife. She chases Tahid all around the house with a knife. And basically, at one point, he tries to take the knife from her, but she stabs him with it. She stabs him in the arm. He's like, oh my gosh, you stabbed me. And so he runs off to the bathroom. He locks himself in the bathroom. Shantae is trying to get at that man. She's trying to stab him and kill him because he put his hands on her. And so basically he stays in the bathroom for a good 30 minutes. Every time he tries to come out, Shantae slashes at him with the knife. She basically traps him in there. Tahid is like, Shantae, please let me out. I need medical attention. Shantae's like, you should have thought about that before you put your hands on me. I'm going to kill you when you come out of there. After a while, Shantae leaves. She goes to the hospital. She has a black eye. Tahid, he calls her and he tries to apologize. She's like, you owe me money for my medical bills. You owe me money for the clothes that you ruined when you ripped them off of me. I'm filing a police report because you put your hands on me. So she and Tammy go back over to his house. He writes her a check for $5,000 and she leaves. Just like that. Dawn and Darnell, they are supposed to be going to see a movie, and they're going with Charlotte and her date. Tammy is in a play that she's been working on all book long. And instead of going to see the movie, Dawn is like, oh no, we're going to go see this play. And it's the play that Tammy is in. It's opening night. And so they go to see the play. Tammy is a star. Dawn has gotten them front row seats. And the seats are so close to the stage that like Tammy can basically see everybody in the theater. And after the play, Darnell, he's trying to raise up out of there. And Dawn's like, no, let's go meet the cast. They go over to meet the cast. And Dawn finally meets Tammy face to face. Tammy, plays it off like she only knows Darnell as a friend. And it's like, oh yeah, this is my writer friend. We met and we be writing with each other. Dawn ain't stupid. And Shantae is also at the play, and Darnell notices that like her eye is black, but it has makeup on it. But he doesn't ask any questions. After they all leave the play, Dawn basically starts grilling Darnell. She's like, I know something's going on between y'all, because even though Tammy's a great actress and she can play it off, Shantae's not as great as an actress, and she obviously knows that something's going on between y'all. And she knows something that I don't. So what's going on? And Darnell, once again, he's denying that something is going on. Dawn reveals that she basically almost divorced Darnell back when he was in law school because she got lonely. The marriage was on the rocks, so she's like, I almost divorced you, but I stuck it out. We have this great life together, and now you're trying to ruin it, running around behind Tammy and trying to be a writer. Shantae and Tammy, a few days after the play, end up having to go to a bail office to bail Karen out of jail. It turns out that Karen indeed was stealing from her job, and she got caught. She got caught stealing from her store that she worked at because she was stealing for Craig. Craig would bring stuff to her register. She would use her discount to like price it at a lower price, but it would be like lower than what it was supposed to be with the discount. She was like, at first it was like little stuff, but then we got greedy. He brought his sister Jamala up there. They got all this expensive stuff, and then Craig and Jamala got arrested. Karen eased her way out the store after basically saying she played dumb. Craig called her from jail and asked her to come bail him out. She bailed him out with her rent money, and then as soon as he was free, she was in jail because they arrested her for her part in it. And so she sat in there for about 3 days. They gave her 3 phone calls. She put 2 out to Craig. The first one, Craig said, oh yeah, I'm working on getting you out. The second one, he was with a girl and basically just hung up on her. And the third one she sent to Tammy, and basically Tammy convinced Shantae to bail Karen out. So Shantae reluctantly bails Karen out. And Karen, she's like super thankful. And Shantae's like, I'm not trying to hear it. I'm only doing this because Tammy asked me to. But after Karen gets herself cleaned up and stuff, Shantae and her start fighting. Shantae starts beating on the girl, and Karen's like, okay, I'm sorry. And Tammy's like, Shantae, stop. And Shantae just beating on the girl. And then Shantae, she finally stops, and she's upset. She's like, you need to pay me back all my money, and until you pay me back all my money, I'm taking some stuff of yours. She basically take like a bunch of expensive stuff from Karen, and she's like, you'll get it back when you pay me my money, and if I don't have my money by a certain date, I'm selling it. Stefan talks to Jake. He goes to see Jake at the fire station, talk to him about what's going on in his life. Jake basically says that he's still not over Charlotte, and he's upset about the restraining order. And he also says that he finally decided to confront his nightmare. He basically started talking back to the children and getting to know them in his nightmare. And he's like, the voices in his head have kind of like quieted down. Stefan goes to pick up Darnell to basically put Darnell's plan into action for the affair. And Dawn basically tells Stefan, oh, while Darnell is out there cheating, make sure he puts on protection because I don't want him bringing nothing home. Stefan and Darnell, they go to the club that Tammy's performing at. Shantae and Stefan, they have words. They make each other jealous, and basically Stefan hooks up with these 2 ladies that are from out of town, while Shantae hooks up with this guy that's like not as attractive to her as Stefan is. Stefan leaves the club. He sees Dawn in the parking lot. We find out that Dawn knew about Tammy and Darnell's plan because Stefan told her, and Stefan told her because he said it was the right thing to do. He said it was hard for him to do, especially after how much he's had Darnell cover for him, but he knew it was the right thing to do, and he wanted to do the right thing, so he did the right thing. She's basically sitting in the parking lot, and she, she's just staring at Darnell and Tammy dancing. She's very hurt. After he talks to her for a little bit, he leaves her to like go meet up with the 2 ladies. He meets up with them, and he's tempted to start his promiscuous ways up again, but he decides not to take the opportunity. I was kind of a little bit disappointed in his part because it's showing that Stefan has the temptation and he's not going to take it, but the way it's shown, instead of it just being solely Stefan's choice not to take it, like having these 2 beautiful older women throwing themselves at him, and he just decides not to accept because he wants to be with Shantae, it's kind of like he's tempted, but in his mind, he's like, I'm not going to do this, I can't do this, but before he can like make the decision to walk away,
the hosts start behaving in a way with each other that makes him uncomfortable, and he finds out some other things about one of the hosts that makes him make the decision to leave them and decides to be faithful. I was disappointed in the way that it was handled because instead of him finding the strength to not fall to temptation and just be faithful for once, it's instead like, oh, he was scared into being faithful because of the way that the hosts were acting with each other, and I just didn't like it.
And while he's going through that, Karen comes to the club because Tammy invited her to come see her perform one last time. Tammy and Darnell, they leave to go do what they're going to do, and so Karen and Shantae, they talk with each other and they start making up. Shantae expresses how she cares about Karen. She only wanted what was best for Karen. Karen says the same thing. She says that's why she was so hard on Shantae and kept basically bringing up all her past escapades. Shantae tells Karen how many guys she slept with, which the number is 10, and then Karen reveals that her number is 18. So they make up. Shantae decides to give Karen her stuff back without repayment, and she also gives Karen the money that she forced Tahi to give to her after he put his hands on her. They're friends again, but their friendship is not going to be at the same level as it was before, but they're in a good place again. Tammy and Darnell, they sneak off to the hotel to go play out their plan of what they're going to do, but they can't go through with it. They're like, it's wrong, we can't do this. They agree that it's best for Darnell to go back to his wife and for him to forget about Tammy and let Tammy just go live her life in Paris. Darnell goes home to Dawn, and Dawn is sitting up waiting for him. She's basically started reading his book, and she's like, oh my gosh, Darnell, this is really good. I'm sorry that I didn't support you earlier. I didn't know how talented you were. And she basically reveals that she had an affair on him back in law school, but Darnell decides to pardon her and basically let bygones be bygones, and Don basically starts supporting his writing career. We find out that Dawn was pregnant. Stefan, he comes back to the club after his encounter with the two people that he met. He comes back. Shantae is there at the club with Karen. He and Shantae make up and they get back together. Jake he's still missing Charlotte. The last we hear of him, he saved a bunch of kids from a burning building, but he's still not over Charlotte. He's still kind of pining for her, and he's still sending her flowers. Darnell successfully gets his book published, but Dawn loses her baby. But Dawn, even though she's lost her baby, she's supporting Darnell. She's hosting book clubs for his book. She's playing the role of the supportive wife, finally. And Darnell decides to leave her. He decides to leave her to go be with Tammy. And I'm like, what the heck? I was like, when I read that, I was like, are you serious? We went through all of this. Dawn finally starts supporting you. She done lost her baby, the one thing she's wanted this whole book, and you leave her to go be with Tammy? Tammy, who told you to basically let her go? Are you serious? Are you serious, Darnell? Like, I was so upset. I don't even like Dawn. Because Dawn was doing the most for the whole book. But she doesn't deserve that. She didn't deserve that. She didn't deserve to basically pour her heart out to her husband, finally get in a good space with him, start supporting his dreams. And then when she finally starts supporting his dreams and being the woman that he wanted her to be, he still leaves her for Tammy.
And then, Darnell didn't even have the nerve to tell Dawn that he was leaving her for Tammy. He wrote it down in a letter and gave it to Stefan and was like, oh, deliver this to Dawn. And the letter basically said, don't come look for me. You couldn't even be man enough to tell this lady to her face that you were leaving her. You wrote it in a letter and just disappeared in the middle of the night. You ain't crap, Darnell. You're not crap.
I was so pissed off for Dawn. I was like, are you serious? Because I'm like, we did all of this for what? I was really hurt for her. And I didn't even like her. You know what that speaks to? That speaks to what Dawn basically feared the whole book. And that speaks to how she was right. She said that the whole book, you're working on this writing career, and you have this good life. You're trying to ruin what we already have. And basically, that's why she wouldn't support him, because she felt like he was trying to ruin what they had worked so hard for. And then when his writing career finally takes off, he leaves her for another woman. I'm like, what the freaking heck, Darnell? Stefan comforts her, but Dawn basically decides to return to New York. She's heartbroken. She returns to New York and basically accepts that Darnell has left her for Tammy. That really just pissed me off with Darnell and Tammy, because the whole book, they was like, oh, we don't want to do this. We don't have this affair. You're married. And then at the end of the day, he just leaves Dawn for Tammy. Are you serious? I think I was more mad because I liked Tammy. Aside from the fact that she was fighting not to have an affair with a married man, I liked her character. She seemed like she had her head on straight, but I guess not. Stefan and Shantae, they're together, and he finally decides to stop acting like his father and to be in a committed relationship with Shantae. He basically decides that he'll always love his father, wish he still had his father around, but he decides that his father's lifestyle that he led was not worth it. So he decides to basically cherish his father's memory, but not live the same lifestyle that his father led. And that's how the book ends. I gave it a 4 because I enjoyed reading it. The characters were well done. The writing was good. It was an enjoyable story, even though it was some mess, but I gave it a 4. I liked it. Thank you for tuning into this video today. If you liked it, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And be sure to check out more content on my channel. And I'll see you next time.